Welcome to the Open Era Podcast. My name is Devang Desai. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Simon Bushel. Bush, another midweek check-in. Sir, how are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. We have fully got into spring here, Dev, in Vancouver. I started noticing some snowdrops coming up, which is interesting for the middle of February. It's kind of bizarre.
We went for a walk just before doing this show, and we saw people playing hockey on a fully frozen rink, while a tennis court was nice and open, and it was 8 degrees outside. So, yeah, definitely that weird part of winter. But I'm fully sick of the whole lack of sunlight thing. So I think we're about to get a whole lot more of it very soon, and that means more outdoor tennis. Which I know last week I said I was gaining that indoor tennis itch, but I don't know. I like the fresh air.
Well, it's the end of my tennis season, isn't it? Once the sun starts coming out and the outdoor courts are available, that's when I pack up for the year. Only playing indoor courts now.
Such an elitist. Okay, well, last week, Bush, we talked a lot about Jannik Sinner and a little Aryna Sabalenka, and we had the Iga Hive, who we love. Don't get me wrong, we do love them, but immediately after posting the tweet for this episode, a friend of the show replied, "This must have been recorded before Iga won in Qatar." And they were right, because that did happen. And because we didn't really talk about her enough last week, I think we're going to spend the majority of this first segment, or at least a good chunk of it, on Iga Swiatek, Bush, who is back and better than ever, ? Or she's just continuously always been good, which I think is more accurate. But if you wanted to talk about someone who wanted to remind us all that she's still very damn good and very damn good on these hard courts, this was a funny time to do it, wasn't it? Because I think the field that she helped dispatch in Qatar was quite impressive, Bush.
I agree. And I think it's also funny that we're recording this on a Thursday evening just to timestamp it before she's potentially won in Dubai as well.
She might win. She might win in Dubai too, yeah.
That being said, the run to her victory in Qatar was impressive, very impressive, not least the way that she saw off Victoria Azarenka in the quarterfinal, bageling her. And then, of course, that big matchup that everyone wanted to see against Elena Rybakina in the final. I think if you had told anyone who was in that stadium watching that first set that Elena Rybakina didn't win that first set, they would have laughed you out the building.
Shocked.
How many chances did she have to put Iga away in that first set and it didn't happen? I think there's testament, obviously, to the Poles' fighting spirit that she stuck in the rallies. Rybakina's going to want that one back, surely, that first set. And I think maybe it's a different final if it goes a different way.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of it's a small margins thing, but also it's maybe it's Iga just developing this track record of being able to come through in situations like this. While I haven't always been sure that she could, she has now that muscle memory of managing through situations where maybe she is not the best player, which is maybe the next evolution of Iga Swiatek's game, because when she is the best player on the court, it's pretty evident pretty early. And now that there is this quartet or this fivesome or however many people you want to include in this top tier, it does feel like we're picking a new best player every other day. We're like, all right, now it's Sabalenka's time, or it's Rybakina's time, or it's Iga's time. So I think to be in the conversation consistently is one thing, but to learn how to win maybe differently is another thing, even though I think she's been able to do that already. It's just maybe we need to be reconvinced again.
I wonder if, as well, I could actually cite something which I almost never do, Dev, which is the top comment from YouTube. The highlights of this final. All right, I'm going to do this. Haters, calm down. Iga is 22 years old, 18 titles, 4 Grand Slams, 7 1000s, 90 weeks at world number 1, and her game is evolving. Everyone stay calm. You see, I don't want to admit.
You have to say the username now. Is the username something insane too? Just to add to it's a good comment, but the username is unhinged.
Okay, the person is Alejandro Rodriguez FR6XD.
So 80% sure it's a bot.
100%.
This bot's got some good points. This bot's got some very good points in my opinion.
These AI bots are evolving too quickly, and they know exactly the kind of content they want to see in the top comment.
they're evolving faster than Iga. It's right though. I mean, can you quibble with it?
No, I cannot. Absolutely. I wonder whether or not Elena. This is ridiculous. Let's go with it anyway. Screw it. We're halfway into this. Let's commit to the bit. Did Elena Rybakina lose this final because she was wearing a long sleeve t-shirt?
Yes. It doesn't require much further explanation, but a simple yes. I think we could all agree. It all fell apart there. I have a trivia question though for you, Simon. With the win, Iga owns Qatar. The first non-sheikh to do so, you could argue, but she became the first player to win the Doha title more than twice, and the first woman to win a singles title at an event in 3 straight years since who and where?
Oh God.
It happened in the tens.
I have no idea. That's really hard.
When I say Serena Williams at Miami, do you memory hole that she used to dominate there in her backyard?
No, that makes sense. That does make. I'm tracking with that. That seems to be very accurate in my brain now.
Bit of a while though. Bit of a while since we've seen someone just absolutely dominate the same tournament. Didn't seem like Iga knew about this record either, but obviously she's content with this. I mean, you lose in the third round in the Australian Open, bit alarming, but it happens. It happens to everyone. Every one of the greats, we've seen them go out early in a bit of a shock, but I think the ability to counter Rybakina's big hitting, manage the conditions, which weren't perfect, excellent sign from her. And as you said, Bush, as we record this, she just laid down another marker, kind of showing that she is just dominating Zheng. Whenever they play, it's not really close.
Yeah, and if you care about the world number 1 ranking following Sabalenka losing to Vekic as well in Dubai, like I think she's cemented that position for at least another few weeks. It's a really difficult one to analyze, isn't it? Because week to week, we could really be talking about anyone who's out of 2 or 3 players who are dominating the field. I've said on the Discord a few times, I said it last year and I've said it again this year. And each time I'm not actually saying it tongue in cheek. I'm not even being sarcastic. I think she could legitimately go undefeated on clay this season. I think she's good enough. I think she's the best player in the world, either from the men or the women's side on that surface. It's going to be very, very hard for her. But I think the level that I expect out of her and the level that she has achieved on her favorite surface is so much higher than the rest of the field that I kind of back her to do it. I think that's how impressed I am with her on that surface in particular.
She's built a bit of a cushion on Sabalenka, you're right. And depending on how this tournament ends, that cushion is safe. I mean, it's easy maybe to read too much into them, and recency bias is a hell of a drug, but also on this same day, like watching Coco just not be able to serve and commit 9,000 double faults against Kalinskaya, you're like, okay, like this is it. Like this is what happens when you're not on your game and you're having an awful day serving. You can lose like this. And we've seen a lot of the top players suffer these kind of losses early on this year, which I think is kind of cool and good. And as much as I want the Final Four to be Iga and Coco and Rybakina withdrew in Dubai. So that's something to monitor. Like as much as I want to see that, I do think that it's like the funkiness of tennis and just the general greatness of the WTA is kind of leading us to having like 1 or 2 of them emerge into the semifinals, and then we're kind of guaranteed something good. And I'm okay with that.
Do you think part of the reason I think Swiatek has got some criticism is just her overall performance at Grand Slam level? Because I think if you remove her from the French Open last year, like obviously her Grand Slam results weren't stellar at all. Like she didn't make the ladder stages of any of them, bar the quarterfinal women as the furthest she went. But really, like the rest of her season was fine. Like I know she didn't fully like dominate in the way that people expected her to, but she was getting to the ladder stages of tournaments, and she kind of looked fine to me. I don't really understand where this sort of narrative has come from that she isn't the same dominant force. I think the idea that there is a single player that is able to completely and utterly, wipe the floor with the field is challenging in this day and age. I think honestly, Dev, my summary of this is she's fine. She's doing exactly what she's supposed to do.
Yeah. I think so. I think she's a bit of a victim of the casual curse, or the casuals curse, as I'm about to call it, which is also throwing shade at thousands of tennis fans who aren't
the normie
tuning in every week. The norms, yeah, but I mean, like, who was watching the China Open last year? We were, but I don't know how many people were. So I think that's the other thing. I mean, a lot of people we knew were watching in Canada, in Montreal when she lost in the semis, and in Cincinnati when she lost in the semis, and in New York when she lost in the fourth round. So yeah, I think that's totally legit. What you're putting forward, Bush. She's been extremely good for extremely long stretches. I think the blips have come in the most high profile of settings, and then maybe that's how a narrative is built. But I mean, I think you just have to look at the last couple of weeks to remind yourself, holy cow, this person is rock solid and 22 years old. So look out.
Have we demonstrated some enough Western exceptionalism on this podcast yet to claim that no one was watching the China Open? Is the
I know. Nobody was watching the China Open. I sounded like Stephen A. there, right?
1.4 billion people in China, just as a reminder.
Nobody. All right. Anything else WTA wise, Bush, before we do some rapid fire ATP stuff?
I thought this was a good final. I know we didn't cover it too much, but I actually really enjoyed it. That first set was a really high level. It was enjoyable to watch. Rybakina fell apart a little bit in the second set, which was quite surprising. But overall, this was a good tournament. And to see two of the best players in the world, arguably the two best players in the world, I'm not sure I buy that myself, but certainly two of the best players in the world make it to the final. It's always testament to how good of a field it was.
Rybakina talking about like fitness and health and how it's just the beginning of the year, but it's getting tougher and tougher physically. Like I think I look at some of these schedules and I get why people are planning different things. And I look at Carlos pulling out of Rio and it does feel like I'm yelling at clouds a bit when I'm like saying, stop playing so much, but also the grind is real. So I do think that is something to keep an eye on. Like who can survive this year physically? I think I'm looking at guys like can Jannik pace himself, or is he going all in right away, just capitalizing off that Australian Open high? Like I think that'll be something to monitor for sure.
One final point, potentially. I did mention the long sleeve shirt in jest, Dev, on Elena Rybakina. Swiatek was seen this week also wearing a long sleeve shirt on tour. I wonder what's going on with this. Rybakina long sleeve shirt and shorts in this tournament. She looked,
I mean, I like that.
So did I.
That's grade 8 me to a T, man. Like that was my fit.
Yeah, nothing against the fit at all. I was just making the point that she looked kind of like she was playing a different sport. Like it kind of looked like an outfit from a different sport as opposed to tennis, of what we're used to. And I can't quite put my finger on what it was.
Exactly.
Maybe badminton?
No, I know exactly.
Volleyball, potentially? Something like that?
It's a hybrid. Yeah, you could definitely see a brand like Joma putting that out, right? Or a Mizuno potentially getting on board with that. I have one thing actually, ATP wise, Bush, not to disparage the fine folks in Rio or Doha or Los Cabos, but I actually am going to talk about Doha for a sec. Have you watched Jakub Mensik play much, Bush?
I saw him beat Andy Murray. And I also saw his Get to Know segment on the ATP website. And he, no shade to the kid, seemed like one of the most boring people on tour.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad we tore him down only to bring him up. But I watched the Rublev match he played, where he earned his first top 5 win. I like this kid a lot, man. I know now I'm maybe just desperately clicking on to the next star, but I think this 18-year-old has got something that could translate into something very cool not far down the line. Amongst these other next gen guys like your Mickelsons and your Fees, count me in on the Mensik train.
He's nailing his colors to the mast early, people. I got it right once with Carlos Alcaraz, so hopefully you can get it right here as well.
It's pretty late too as well. But I saw him briefly in Davis Cup as well last year, and I just generally like his game too. So if you can confidently do the backwards hat and really own it, you got a place in my heart.
He looks really good. He's got a huge serve, and he hits the ball. Yeah. All of his strokes look very, very repeatable. I must admit, I did not see a huge amount in that win over Murray where I thought that's a bona fide like top 10 player, but I will watch more of him. And admittedly, it's just one match that I'm watching, and it's Andy Murray, of course, that he's playing against. So it's a very particular style that you're going up against, but he certainly has weapons. And one thing I did take away from that video, he loves Novak Djokovic. Absolutely adores the man. So yeah, he has that going for him as well.
Well, Dino Prismic might be the other guy that we talk about a lot in the coming years. He's 18.
No, he is good.
From Croatia.
I think he's really, really good.
18 too. Yeah. So they're coming, man. Let's see. I'm excited, but also let's see. Let's not count this as real just yet.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of people who are washed up before we go to parting shots, we should talk about Jannik Sinner briefly. I mentioned
he's cooked, right?
He's totally cooked. I mentioned the outfit from Elena Rybakina. Someone please send help to Jannik Sinner for someone who is about to be the world number one. Can we get him into better outfits, please? That is one thing that I will say about it. Secondarily, that basement that they were playing in Rotterdam, I love it, Dev.
Holy crap! What? They killed this man. The lighting used to be way better here, didn't it? Did that car always used to be that close as well? I know it's been there for a while.
Did you see the guy sitting in it?
There was people sitting in the car. I could not. I was physically sick watching a man sitting in a car watching.
If you were
did they want to stereotype every tennis country club person ever with this? Was that the goal?
It looks so much like they were playing in the basement of a department store. Like if you had gone slightly to the left of it, you would run into a top man or something. That's kind of what it felt like.
Oh man, I could have sworn they used to have some of the best lighting as well, right? Like I'm pretty sure this was like the nightclub, like Paris Bercy in this place was like, do you want to watch tennis in a weird nightclub? Yeah, come here. But something's changed, man.
Something's changed with you, tennis. We don't like you anymore. We liked it when you used to be cool. Okay. Just in country clubs. Now you're in basements. What's happened?
You're sitting in the car. Come on. Okay. When we come back, parting shots. Ivo Karlovic retiring. Holger Rune doing some stuff. Coco Gauff making some statements. Along with Simona Halep getting an update and more sports washing stuff. There's a whole lot coming. Join us after the break.
Welcome back to the show. It's time for parting shots, Devang. We kick off this segment with some sad news, but also some positive news, and the fact that he's enjoying his retirement already. Ivo Karlovic, Dr. Ivo, announced that he's retired. Apparently this is quite delayed. I was reading about this. Like he actually retired about a year ago, but has just not been on tour and now officially made it official this week. You have memories of Ivo Karlovic other than the oldest man ever to win a tour title, which is pretty incredible. A gentle giant by all accounts, and I think someone that the tour will miss.
100%. I remember when he took out Hewitt at Wimbledon, I think 2003, his first kind of moment on the scene. We were like, who the hell is this monster? And like, what lab did they dig him out of? But at that time, super young, right, Bush? And he had obviously a monster serve then, but it felt like, wow, like what if he could add some other things to his game? But I think he did add a lot to his game, and he managed to become less one-dimensional than maybe we would consider one of the greatest servers of all time, which he was for sure. To be at 6'11" and like move around the court the way he did, Bush, I think is something we severely underrate, considering watching like other athletes that size, watching them try to move around and be nimble. Like it's kind of remarkable. But I remember him being also a funny guy and also someone who, if you had a favorite player, you were terrified to see him in their part of the draw for a big tournament. So fun, gregarious, hell of a player. monster serve. Yeah, nothing bad to say.
We always talk about how if you have a player that you'd want to bring with you, let's say either from the ATP or WTA side, to your local country club, to Devang's local country club, as we established last week, that you want to win one set or you want to win like 1 point or something or a game.
Life or death, like, yeah, someone, you're being held hostage or something. Yes, exactly.
And that's the thing. Everyone's going to be like, oh, I'll take Roger Federer, I'll take Serena Williams. I'm taking fucking Iga Swiatek.
Yeah, like, if it's like, if they can't return their serve, you get $1,000. Like, yeah, that's who I'm going with for sure. And this might sound like John Isner hate, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to bring John Isner up for no reason at all. But
here it comes.
Aesthetically, I thought Dr. Evo brought something to the table that some of his lanky compatriots did not.
We'll just leave that one sitting there.
He had a really good backhand too. He had a really good, fun two-hander that captivated some.
Ivo Karlovic, the Greg Radetzky of his era? That's probably not true, right? Radetzky was the top 5.
No, but the way they spoke about him at that 2003 Hewitt match, they're like, this monster has taken out Leighton Rusty Hewitt, who was like Frankenstein had gone onto the court.
We miss you, Dr. Evo, already gone. Dr. Evo, good name for a children's cartoon. I don't know what the context of that would be, but hopefully someone writes it. Dev, we didn't touch on Carlos Alcaraz in the first segment. Are you equally as horrified as I was to see his ankle, to see the photo of his ankle? It was disgusting. I almost lost my breakfast after seeing that.
So that was obviously the source of his exit from Brazil, correct?
Correct, yes. It looked like he had a golf ball shoved under his ankle. It was disgusting.
I get it. Like, I get wanting to play and doing the golden swing, and obviously getting clay reps this year of all years is extremely important, with the Olympics also coming up. But he's got an exo with Rafa in Vegas. He wants to play Indian Wells. It's the schedule, man. I'm going to keep tapping the sign. Check your schedules, bro. So I'm a bit worried.
Like the Simpsons clip, right? Him tap the bus driver.
The bus driver, exactly. Don't make me tap the sign. Why do you keep playing? What's going on here? You're one of the few players who aren't economically dependent on playing every goddamn tournament either. But I think this is like that balance where, and it reminds me a bit of other sports where like they will sack a coach during the season and they'll talk about how they don't have a lot of practice time and it's a lot of learning on the fly, learning in game situations. And I wonder if like there's an inherent advantage to being able to take a track like your Novaks or other veterans who really don't need to do this stuff. They're practicing and doing their own thing, getting just as ready, but with totally different people around them and maybe the stakes are different. So I don't know. As the game changes and as these tours change and the more money is thrown at different tournaments, I really wonder what they're going to do to make it so that we're not losing players all over the place and looking at, something like the weight of tennis balls is a factor as well.
So, Carlos Alcaraz finished. That's the concluding factor here. Done. So, Dev, what is going on with Holger Rune? It's been an interesting week, has it not been, for the Dane, in terms of some of the things that have been said about him, some of the advice that he was given to avoid taking supplements from a well-known celebrity tennis coach who he now appears to be back in the corner with. Yeah,
interesting stuff. Holger Rune moving from Boris Becker and Severin Luthi to old pal Patrick Mouratoglou. I don't know, man. I don't care as much what happens to Holger Rune's career going forward. But how will this go? That I'm curious about. Because P. Moore's stature in the game has never been lower, could you argue? Post-Halep?
Yeah. He has a ton of questions to answer, doesn't he?
You got Andy Roddick and Kim Clijsters taking shots, fully warranted shots, but it's interesting. Like I think they mentioned his website is like just a huge self-promotional catalog. Like he has a lot to lose here too. So I think Holger Rune not fading away into the abyss after this is important for everyone involved, including his mom, obviously. So I'm very curious to see how this goes. I don't know. I'm kind of concerned for the young Danish lad.
So remember when Rune was doing his thing at the back end of last year and got world number 4, or I should say in the summer of last year, got as high as world number 4. And a bunch of people were writing articles or were phrasing, and it actually came up in our Discord as well. And the thing constantly came up of being like, the guy's not going to win a Grand Slam because it's between the ears, it's just not there. Like, he's super talented. No one's denying that. He has everything going for him, but he does not have it, quote unquote. He does not have it when it comes to his overall preparation, his commitment to the sport, all of the things that you want to throw at someone about, dedication, mental ability, grind, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of come a little bit true this year in terms of his results and in terms of the things that people are using to beat him with a stick with. I don't think, honestly, it is. I think it's harsh of a 20-year-old who I still think is phenomenally talented. I think, he has the ability to be one number 1 and win a Grand Slam. There's no doubt about that, of how good he is. But you don't want to give them ammunition to point these things at you. You don't want to give your fellow competitors ammunition as well. And it's not like he's really given people any reason to suggest that he's not that way inclined in terms of his commitment to the sport and constantly chopping and changing from coaches. So yeah, all that is to say, I don't know, Dev. Maybe I'm not buying it anymore. Maybe I'm not buying him anymore.
Yeah, well, let's talk Halep, because I mentioned that Roddick Kleister's podcast, on Served with Andy Roddick, which is great. Full on, go listen to it. I mean, you probably already have if you're listening to this, but their conversation about Simona Halep, I thought was really interesting, Bush. Especially Kim Kleister's talking about the fact that amongst all these punishments, none was handed out to Mortagalu's team or the people that took over Halep's day-to-day coaching, because when this all happened, when she joined P-Mort in 2022, she changed her entire team. She sacked all the people she used to work with and hired Mortagalu and these people. And then last year, of course, in November, Mortagalu kind of held up his hand as like, this is my fault, etc. Halep ditched him. Halep is now appealing at CAS. Well, I mean, there have been some surprising rulings before at CAS, so you never know. But has your opinion on Simona Halep changed a bit, considering what we know now regarding this, or do you still think this is her shouldering the majority of the blame here for what's happened?
I think I said on the podcast last year when all of these all got handed down that I thought she was guilty. I did not see an avenue based upon the evidence which had been presented to us that exonerated her in any capacity. And other than blind faith on someone or what you think about the person on an emotional level, I can only speak as a podcaster, Dev, as a beloved host of a podcaster, based on the evidence that's in front of us. And she looks guilty to me. I can't see any other way or alternative to that. If there are things that come to light that exonerate her, then that's great, but not to me at the moment. And I guess the final point in this is it looks fucking terrible on Patrick Mortagalu, does it not? Like, all of this looks absolutely awful.
Crazy bad. Well, this is what Kim Kleister was getting at, though. I think she's totally right. Like, how does that work? Like, how did the people who administered the supplement that ended up triggering the positive test get to work with other tennis players? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's the equivalent of hiring a disgraced physician who worked with a cycling team that ended up getting banned for doping, and then you hire him as well. And it's like, cool. I don't think you can do that.
You can in tennis, baby.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I don't know, man. Like, I don't like. My thoughts on Holger Rune changed by the day. I tried to soften on him a bit. I regret it kind of, but I also feel like the family stuff is not super healthy. Again, I have no idea of knowing the ins and outs of those relationships, but I don't know. We'll see how this goes. Coco Gauff, Simon.
Coco Gauff was, and now we get into the meat of the show, do we not?
Yes, something lighter.
Jesus.
JK.
So Coco Gauff was interviewed this week where she spoke about Gaza. I thought actually, for the standards of a professional athlete making an opinion on this as a topic, I thought she actually spoke pretty well, to be honest. Basically implying, or quote, I feel like it's very ignorant to say you're not aware because it is everywhere. You see it on the news, and I think it's important for us as privileged citizens to do our research and continue to demand our leaders to make some change. And I will never not advocate for that. And I do advocate for peace, and I advocate for the thousands. I think it's almost like I said, millions at this point of kids and innocent people being killed for a conflict I feel that shouldn't be happening. You know, again, for a 19-year-old, this is very strong, and I think has been a lot better than you've seen the rest of tennis do at the moment. So I wanted to circle that because I think it's important to highlight when you do see figures in our sport making comments like that. Dev, this comes off the back of a truly dreadful display in the United Kingdom House of Commons over a vote for a potential ceasefire, or the language invoking a ceasefire in the United Kingdom. I have seen multiple times this is one of the most popular positions in the United Kingdom. I believe it's nearly 70% approval rating for a ceasefire. You don't get 70% on anything in the UK, but apparently you can get 70% on the fact that people realize that you shouldn't be bombing fucking children. Again, seeing a 19-year-old having more elegance than the leader of the opposition, the Prime Minister of the UK, is not a good situation.
No, cosign. I thought Rima Buele, she does an amazing job. I think she gave Coco the floor to say her piece, and I was, like you, impressed. And I guess my bar is kind of low for these things, unfortunately. But I thought her words were powerful. I mentioned this to you, Bush, on WhatsApp this week. But I was listening to some British media. I used to listen to the World Service a lot, but holy cow, this shit is unlistenable since October 7th. Like it's very interesting, and to have 70% of the public on the side of the ceasefire, and then to hear some of the takes, it's like, what the hell? What's going on? I know that's not just limited to the UK at all, but as someone who used to listen pretty extensively to the World Service, it's a bit of a shame for me.
Yeah, not to dive too much into UK politics here, but I think the Scottish National Party has been pretty strong on this in advocating and calling for a ceasefire since.
And I mean, Ireland as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's separate, I know. Separate, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is just Westminster, right? It is just the London-based aspect of UK politics, is that you have the two main political parties that have their heads so far up their asses that they are not even understanding that the overwhelming majority of the country is polling, wanting to see a ceasefire here, as is the rest of the world. And again, it's just the United States and the UK that are holding this up, which is very sad.
Let's continue our political science edition of Open Air assignment, Kasatkina on Navalny.
So, yeah, again, a really awful week in terms of global geopolitics. Alexei Navalny, I don't think I can do it justice here in the 2-minute segment that I have to talk about this whole situation. But from a tennis perspective, seeing Dasha Kasatkina voice her support and showering light and praise for Alexei Navalny, it's very brave, I think, to do that. And I think you have to remember at the same time that she's been pretty strong on everything which is going on in Russia as well. So again, like with the Coco Gauff situation of wanting to circle that and front it to the world, I also think it's a good time to remember that Kasatkina has also been very strong on this issue as well.
Big time. Her brothers are in Canada too. I didn't know that, which is interesting. 100%. I mean, I have a incredible amount of respect for Daria Kasatkina for a number of reasons, but I mean, this is one of them. I found that Reddit thread you linked to, Simon, interesting. Or you didn't link to it. I searched it. This is my own fault. I can't blame you for it. But some of the comments on Navalny's views and how he was a nationalist in the early part of his career and had some bad things to say about immigrants, etc. Like this is the refuge for the internet troll to use this as that moment to point that out, as if I think the various literature on Alexei Navalny and his various views, and the documentary that I think just came out last year on HBO gets into that, and not to absolve the man as a saint, but as to say that this person was trying to further a cause that was obliterated by the powers that be in Russia. Like, I think that is something that Daria Kasatkina can empathize with in a lot of ways, considering where she's at in her own life and in terms of her relationship with the country. So big ups to her. And I mean, you saw the way they treated some of the mourners for Navalny in Russia. Bush, it was like, shit. It's one of those things where I kind of followed your lead. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, where you were talking about news consumption and how we consume the news. And I kind of turned off my push alerts for a couple of weeks. And I kind of stumbled upon this news, and I was like, okay, so tuning out doesn't really mean tuning out, because I guess the news is never far away.
Yeah, I've said it before, right? Sunday is my news day, is that I don't read breaking news at all during the course of the week and try and catch up on everything on Sunday, just so you have time for things to settle down and for you to kind of take stock of everything. But a very, I would choose my words carefully here, a principled man? Is that fair? I don't know. Might want to take that one back, but a brave man, certainly.
I think that's what I would say. Like, he went back to Russia from Germany knowing this was going to happen.
I think brave is. I think brave is very fair, right? I think that seems,
because I don't think we have to agree with everything he said, and I think this is a wider discussion about a few different things we can talk about. But yeah, rather than sainting or trying to make someone out as a saint, I think we could acknowledge she had incredible courage to do what he did, and there's a hell of a lot of politicians in our neck of the woods who do not have that courage. So there,
it's very true. I guess to close the circle on this one, Diana Yastremska released a single this week, a Ukraine-inspired single named Hearts. It's interesting. Apparently she's recorded a few tracks previously, which I did not know. Apologies to Diana Yastremska. But this was a song written about Ukraine, specifically and the children of Ukraine, encouraging support and solidarity. It's kind of cool to be able to see this. Obviously, there's been some very vocal supporters of Ukraine within both tours, but to see a track like this, I didn't think the track was kind of my cup of tea, but I think that's kind of beyond the point here, Dev, because the message is perhaps more powerful than whether I enjoyed this as a sonic piece, perhaps.
Do you remember that song, We're in Heaven by DJ Sammy?
I do.
Do you remember? It kind of reminded me of that, the beginning of it. In a way that, like, it was mixed well. It was mixed really well. Like, I think that the people she worked with, Latvian artist, Latvian rapper Loopout, and Czech singer Rodan. It was a collab. It's a Czech, Latvian, and Ukrainian collab, which I think is cool, just based on the geography. But yeah, I don't know. It's better than Chapo. Let's say that. I'm not trying to throw Chapo on the bus here, but I think this track goes, as the kids say.
I mean,
Night Train was hard to top. I think the problem was Chapo peaked too early. Like, once you come out with Night Train, how do you top that?
The only way is down from that point, isn't it? I love that gets described as his peak as well. Let's perhaps move on from that swiftly. I just wanted to sort of front up here, Dev, is that in this segment we've had accusations or like the credible elements of a former world number one doping. And then we have a continued war going on in Gaza. And then we have the death of a diplomat in Russia. Tennis fucking interlinks with so much, does it not? In terms of its geopolitics and in terms of how these stories come up every single week. It's wild that this is the case, but I guess it's not really that surprising, just given that it's a global sport.
Is there another sport like this, like it in that regard? I'm trying to think of a sport that touches more corners of the globe, and I can't really think of one.
I can't either. I mean, F1 maybe, golf maybe.
Yeah,
you would argue, but fucking golfers aren't answering questions on Gaza. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I would love to hear Tiger Woods.
Oh my God.
On this. No, I'm joking. Speaking of big time celebs. Rafa Nadal doesn't want his son to play tennis, question mark?
He does not. I was really hoping to try and do a perfect segue from saying from one principled man to another. Let's talk about Rafael Nadal. But you've trumped me here. So Nadal was quoted during the course of this week saying that his preference was that his son does not play tennis. And I think this raised a few eyebrows on the basis that what does that mean? Like, I think people wanted him to expand a little more on it, other than just by saying that it's a tough sport, it's brutal. We know all these sort of things, but like, what are the inner workings and machinations that Rafael Nadal, of all people, does not want his own child playing the sport? I would love to know the answer to that question. Other than a soundbite that we got here, it kind of is a fascinating one. I'm
gonna guess and pretend I know Rafa deeply, but maybe it's like he doesn't want his kid to be compared to him and like have that kind of hanging on over him, because it's not like he's someone who, it's not like he's Casper Ruud's pops, who carved out a really good career and did his thing and traveled the world. Like, this is a different story. So maybe it's almost trying to protect him a bit. And also, like, it seems like he loves golf and soccer just as much as tennis. And also his uncle wasn't yelling at him in those other two sports. So maybe there's some trauma recall about growing up, going after it every single damn day, even when he didn't want to.
So, book it. Rafa Nadal's kid, definitely going to be a footballer, surely.
I for sure see that. I actually, he'll do it. I could see it.
Rafa also this week winning a amateur golf tournament, so putting all of his post-tennis life to good use. Just leave that silence there for a second.
Shocker.
Speaking also of post-tennis life, Roger Federer seen hitting on Instagram stories, playing against a wall. Is he coming back, Dev?
Don't do this to me, man. But like, no. And like, I hope not, kind of. It could be weird. But I did see a couple of things, Roger adjacent, Bush. They're making a doc about that Laver Cup, the last Laver Cup, which I think will be fascinating. I mean, there's some things about that tournament that we've kind of memory hold, like Tiafoe and Jack Sock being chased out of the building basically because they dared to win, and the horrible comments that were directed to them. I think Josh mentioned this in the Discord, but like, will they address that? I wonder if I'll be able to watch this relatively soon, because I don't know if I will. I'm curious about it. And the other thing is that there's not a single player in the top 10 of the ATP with a one-handed backhand anymore.
Sad times.
Since he passes out. That to me is pretty messed up. Because like, I don't know, Bush, that I know Owen, friend of the show, Owen Lewis, is somewhere happy as hell, but I'm sad by this. I'm saddened.
The documentary is fascinating, isn't it? Because we are in the era of content, of course.
Sports docs.
We are. We had the David Beckham image washing documentary, which came out last year.
But it was good. Remember?
It was good. I'm not denying that fact, but it was obviously very. Yeah. It was designed to make him look good. Yeah. That's the point of it, right? Like, there are many things that David Beckham has managed to insulate himself against in his professional career post-football as a businessman, in terms of his shady business, that did not get brought up here and gets sort of swept under the carpet as being like, he has been an entrepreneur in his life after football, and we should celebrate that.
Yeah.
We should probably maybe not look into where some of that money is coming from or where he's being paid from.
Yeah.
Kind of curious whether Roger Federer is about to get the same treatment when it comes to but the thing is, he doesn't need image washing. He's already so good at it that he doesn't need to do that.
Yeah. People like forget. Yeah. People don't even acknowledge, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, Zverev's in this whole thing too. He's there all the time. He's coming back to the next Laver Cup. Yeah. Very curious about it. I don't know. I feel kind of uneasy about it, to be honest. So that's it for me, Bush, unless you've got anything else parting shots related.
At one point, we were going to talk about sport washing in tennis, but perhaps we'll save that for another time because it's an enormous topic. And
we had a good chat in the Discord, or you did mainly, Bush. I think you and Josh and a few others, but I think it might deserve its own show at some point with some guests.
I think we should work on that one. I think it's a useful primer for people, and I think for a sport that's about to reckon with this, I don't think there's been a lot of good quality journalism on why it's an issue that we're going to end up in Saudi Arabia.
And I would like to hear the perspective of people closer to the region, or who have an ability maybe to tell us like how it is on the ground, and whether or not this is really accessible for many. Because like I don't think it is, based on what I see on TV and who's in the stands and how packed the stands are. Like, it doesn't seem like it is, but I don't have a firm grasp. So yeah, I think we got to put some work into this and do it right, and hopefully come up with this at some point soon for y'all. 2 challenges remaining, Simon. What do you got this week?
Shall I go? Well, it's been quite a heavy show, hasn't it? Okay, let's go in a positive direction as opposed to a negative one. I've been listening to the Decemberists a lot, a band which I was only sort of tangentially aware of growing up. And for some inexplicable reason, I went back and started listening to an album that I'd never heard before and really loved it. I thought it was really good. I know they're a bit of a cult band at this point, but I have listened to their entire back catalogue during the course of the week and thought it was great. So thumbs up for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing them in August here.
It's tremendous. Wow. I've dabbled with the Decemberists. I dig it. It's good stuff. I will shout out an audiobook I binged very quickly this week. He's a friend of mine too, Justin Bourne, does hockey analysis at Sportsnet.
Really good.
But his book Down and Back, about his life in hockey and his family life and his battles with alcoholism, was excellent. And it's available wherever you get books, but also at your public library. But I've known Justin for a long time, and he's a phenomenal dude, but I really appreciated him putting his story out there. And I found myself empathizing in a lot of ways with it. And reading texts like these, I think, is really helpful in ways to, in so many ways that sometimes it's hard to explain, but just knowing that a lot of people are sharing this path with you, it means a lot. So I would highly recommend checking it out. Down and Back by Justin Bourne. Really good.
Justin Bourne, come on Open Era. Invitation is always there.
Good time. All right. We will leave it there. A reminder, we are on patreon.com/open era. Join us there. Get the show ad free. Get it early. You will probably get the show very early, before the weekend, even if you're a Patreon subscriber. So that's a big perk.
Sure.
And we do these midweek shows, but you also get access to the Discord where we're talking tennis all the time. Say it time and time again, but wonderful place, wonderful people. Might steal Priyanka's episode title name because I blanked here. But yeah, these people are great, smart as hell too. So join us on the Discord. Join us on X or Twitter /Open Era. Still kind of going on there. We'll see how long that lasts. And that's it for producer Dill on the 1s and 2s. And for Simon, thank you so much for listening to Open Era. We'll talk to you next week.